What do you think are some of the myths or falsehood when it comes to maintaining a marriage that you'd like to debunk or disprove or say that it's not actually this, it's actually that?
That's a good question. I think that the biggest one I've seen is that if we're really compatible, if we really should be together, this shouldn't be this hard. That's a phrase I hear a lot. And absolutely, every marriage, every relationship is going to be work. And that doesn't mean that you're not meant to be together, but it also doesn't mean that you are meant to be together. So, but it is going to be work. But what people find is they've done longitudinal studies to see, like they had this study one time where they followed couples that got married over a course of something like 30 years. And they studied whether some couples said that they never argued at all. Some couples said they argued all the time. And some couples say that they argue like a moderate amount of time. And when they followed these couples over 30 or 40 years, what they found is the couples that said that they never argued at all died earlier on average and tended to ended up divorced. The couples that said that they argued some of the time or all of the time tended to have longer lives, tended to be married longer. And then those that said that they argued all the time did usually end up being divorced. So if you look at that, without even kind of reading the study, what does that tell you? First of all, these people who are saying that they never argue, somebody's holding something in. Somebody's not saying the whole truth for whatever reason that is. They don't feel like it's safe. They don't know how to communicate, whatever that is. You always are going to have something that you need to discuss, right? The people that argued all the time, there were never any experiences that outweighed the difficult times that they had because they argued. And the couples that say they argued a moderate amount of time, then you can start to talk about, well, when you do argue, do you have a productive conversation? Do your arguments come to a conclusion? And what they really found was that it didn't matter how much couples argued as long as they reported overall that the number of times where they actually had times where they connected and they enjoyed being together, that outweighed how many times that they argued, actually stayed married longer and actually lived longer.
I'm glad you mentioned that because there's some times where people would think that, to your point, right? Well, it's not supposed to be this hard. And I always felt and always believed that you learn the most about yourself and the person you're with through conflict resolution, right? If you're in a relationship and you're able to disagree on something, because you're going to be disagreeing with a number of people throughout this life, the longer you live, the more people you disagree with, right? You should be able to be able to resolve the conflict. And then it takes me back. I forget the name of the person who came up with this, like the three T's, right? You have timing, tone, and turf,
Oh,
right? Where it's like, okay, is the timing appropriate for this conversation? Is my tone appropriate? Is the turf, right? You can't be that person that he or she goes on a all girls night out or all guys night out and you take the chair pointed in front of the door and you're sitting there until the person gets home. You may fall asleep, it's going to irritate you even more, and you're waiting to be combative. The timing is not appropriate. The tone, who knows what your tone is going to be at this point, right?
mm-hmm.
When you mentioned that it's not supposed to be this hard, it's supposed to be easy. Have you ever come across someone explaining how easy do they think it's supposed to be, or based on everything that you have come across, how easy do they mean it's supposed to be when it comes to relationships?
That's a good question because people always know what they don't want, or they always can tell you what the problem is, but they have trouble identifying the solution. So when they quantify anything, they never have an answer for that. And they stutter when you ask them for an answer for that. So good question because people do not define that. And then the second question is how do you know when you've arrived or achieved that, whatever that is, if you don't define it? You mentioned a podcast that I taped last week about finances. And when I talk to couples about finances, I notice they don't define things. So somebody will say, uh, I really want to go on vacation, but my husband says we don't have enough of a cushion in the bank and we can't go on vacation until we start having enough of a cushion in the bank. So I will ask the husband, wife, whatever, well, How much of a cushion would you like to have in the bank before you're okay with going on vacation? And they don't have an answer, which means you are never going on vacation. Or I'd like to have more in retirement before we buy another house or whatever, but they don't define what it is. So you're sabotaging yourself.